All right, looks like we're all here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could have a seat. The City Council is reconvening from closed session, and to report by a vote of 5-0, the City Council authorized and directed the City Attorney's Office to defend the case of Tamara Reg versus City of Elk Grove et al., Sacramento Superior Court Case number 342020-002-74183. In addition to that, by a vote of 5-0, the City Council authorized the City Attorney to initiate litigation in one matter. The name of the defendants and details are not subject to disclosure at this time. Once litigation is filed, this information will be disclosed to any person upon inquiry. That being the case, let's go ahead and adjourn closed session at 6:25 p.m. And I want to call to order the Elk Grove a regular City Council meeting on Wednesday, February the 26th at 6:25 p.m. Mr. Clerk, if you can read the Metro replay schedule.
Thank you, Mayor. This meeting of the Elk Grove City Council will be replayed on Metro Cable Channel 14 on Friday, February 28th at 1 p.m. and Tuesday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. It is being closed captioned and will be webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website at elkgrovecity.org. For members of the audience who may have personal electronic devices, please place them on silent mode during the meeting. Elk Grove City Council welcomes, appreciates, and encourages participation in the City Council meeting. City Council requests that you limit your presentation to 3 minutes per person so that all present will have time to participate. City Council reserves the right to reasonably limit the total time for public comment on any particular noticed agenda item as it may deem necessary. Pursuant to Resolution Number 2010-24, no individual speaker concerning public comment may address the council for more than 3 minutes. The speaker timer on the podium counts down the individual speaker time remaining and will turn yellow after the first 2 minutes have passed, indicating 1 minute remains to summarize comments. For our viewers in the audience, viewers at home watching the live webcast, and future viewers on our future video postings, I did just want to note that the council chamber was updated in January 2020. This is kind of a reminder notice. So our sound equipment, our audio-visual equipment has been upgraded as we're going into 2020. With that, we just ask for a little bit of patience from folks as the system adjusts. We have staff that are monitoring the process of how the system and equipment has been working, and we're working to improve the quality of both sound and visual that's going on. For our council members and staff who have desk microphones, I will just put out the reminder that the sweet spot for the microphone, once you have it activated, is in that 8 to 12-inch area in front of the microphone. It does the best to pick up, but it also attenuates to your voice as you're speaking through it. And for our members of the public that might go up to the speaker podium, what we do ask is that those two microphones stay in that kind of shoulder width area, but you can adjust them either up or down depending on your height at the speaker podium. It's best when those microphones, though, are pointed and they're at that distance away, not pulled together, but when they keep that distance and they're pointed towards the speaker in the region of really in the sweet spot of your head area and mouth, that's the best quality for us to pick up the sound. So we appreciate that. For anyone that does wish to address the council during the meeting, please complete a blue speaker card, which can be found at the back of the chamber and provided to the Assistant City Clerk prior to consideration of the agenda item. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, roll call, please.
For the roll call, Councilmember Nguyen. Here. Councilmember Hume. Here. Councilmember Suen. Here. Vice Mayor Ettrick.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
I am here. Next item.
Take us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, we have a special officer here tonight. I'd like to invite him to lead us in the pledge. Officer Jared Houston.
Hand over heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. The beginning of every regular city council, the council would like to invite members of the public to join us in a moment of silence. If you could, please. Thank you very much. And I have an agenda in front of me.
So moved.
There's a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention. Next item.
We have no items under Section 3 of the closed session, which will take us on to Section 4, our presentations and announcements, starting with item 4.1, which is a presentation by Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Places, regarding restrictions on the sale and use of flavored tobacco, other tobacco-related projects, updating the definition of smoking, and retail density options.
Hey, how are you, girl? Good evening, council members. While I get this adjusted, the mouse is fighting with me. All right, there we go. Good evening again. My name is Twyla Laster. It's good to be back with you. I am the project director for Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Safe Places. And this is my colleague from Sacramento County, Danica Peterson. And we are here at your request to present on policy options as they relate to menthol, flavored tobacco, and updating smoking definitions and retail density. Soul Project is a California Department of Tobacco Control funded project under Proposition 99 and Proposition 56 tobacco tax dollars. We are a regional initiative, and we're funded to serve 14 counties in Northern California, which includes Sacramento County as well as Elk Grove. So our current initiatives involve working with jurisdictions to, again, update the their policies as it relates to menthol and flavored tobacco, work with local jurisdictions to update smoking definitions, existing smoking definitions, and smoke-free outdoor policies, and address social determinants of health as they relate to tobacco, and train young people in civic engagement opportunities. So although our initiatives specialize in African American focused projects, we serve everyone because, as you know, policy in tobacco control, outreach, and education benefits everyone. So what's the problem with tobacco and vapes? Still, it is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. 40,000 adults die annually in California from smoking, and the tobacco and vape industry are still really at it by recruiting new users daily to replace those who die or quit. 441,000 is the projected number of deaths of kids who will ultimately die from using these products when used legally as intended will kill you. Smoking costs us all. In Sacramento County, it is projected that $285 million will be the costs related to health care this year. So this slide here happens to show the different types of flavored tobacco products that are out on the market that include flavors. There's over 15,000 different flavors on the market, and electronic nicotine delivery systems, also known as ENDS, comes in many different forms and are known by several different names, including vapes or vape pens, e-hookahs, mods, or tanks. And these products are battery operated and designed to deliver nicotine, deliver flavors, and also different chemicals in the form of aerosol that are inhaled deeply into the lungs. The products often look like USB devices and play a key role in enticing the new users, particularly kids, into a lifetime of addiction. On this slide, it shows the flavored tobacco products a little closer up for you. And as you can see, some of these vape juice flavors immediately remind you of childhood favorites, such as grape candy or vanilla wafers or pokey sticks, and even treetop apple juice, to name a few. The vape that is pictured here is called a Juul, and like I said, it looks like a USB device, which means it can hide in plain sight. Usually parents and teens or teachers don't even know that this is actually something that the kids are using to inhale smoke with. Each Juul pod is packed with 41 milligrams of nicotine, and that is equal to the amount of nicotine in maybe about a pack and a half or 2 packs of cigarettes. A fixed pod, which is another similar type of device, contains almost twice that amount. The tobacco industry marketing is really heavy towards kids, and associating these products with our kids' favorite flavors and childhood type of flavors and products make it even harder for parents to recognize them. They know that by getting the kids hooked, they have consumers for the next generation, and that's just going to continue the addiction into adulthood. This slide highlights menthol. So menthol is known by different names. It can be mint, it can be Arctic Freeze, and it masks the harsh taste of the tobacco. When it's inhaled, it actually anesthetizes the throat so that the user can inhale more deeply and the particles settle into the lungs more deeply, and that causes even more health disparities. Research shows that the flavor can make the cigarettes more addictive, and people who smoke these type of products with this particular flavor have more signs of nicotine dependence and are often more likely to have problems quitting. Minority groups such as African Americans have been targeted for decades with aggressive marketing campaigns for these menthol products, and this product in particular is even sold cheaper in certain neighborhoods. So this graph has some different images from the 1960s to present day. 7 out of 10 African Americans use these flavored products because they're attractive and they're sexy. And these are similar examples across minority populations and also the LGBT community, just blatant advertising across the board. So for every one smoker who switches from cigarettes to vaping, 81 teens actually start smoking. You may have heard that the flavored products are used as a quitting tool for people to quit smoking, but that's actually not true. In the 2018, it showed these statistics right here. And switching is not quitting, especially if one cigarette only contains 10 to 12 milligrams of tobacco nicotine in regards to a vape product that has over 5 times more. So the federal ban, although the U.S. Federal Food and Drug Administration passed a policy to prohibit the sale of cartridge-based e-cigarettes, it doesn't go far enough to protect our communities. The FDA's policy does not include the flavor of menthol. It doesn't include e-cigarettes. It doesn't include e-liquids. It doesn't include refillable pods, nor refillable e-cigarettes, such as the Soren or the Puff Bar, which are still be legal to sell and access to youth. Given these factors, given these factors, the tobacco industry still has several different outlets that they can use in order to hook children into a lifetime of addiction. So it is up to you as the City Council to protect the most vulnerable here in Elk Grove by considering policy restrictions for menthol and flavored tobacco, including updating the definition of smoking to include these type of products. So cities and counties and also tribes are taking steps at the local level in order to enact their own smoke-free policies. So smoke is smoke, and secondhand smoke from any of these sources causes death and disease. So residents and pets can be exposed to secondhand smoke, whether it's in their cars or their homes, apartments, and condos, and even outdoors in patio areas and organized events. So updating the definition of smoking to include hookah, marijuana, cigarillos, cigars, vaping products adds another layer of comprehensive protection to these laws that can build on the state level. So Sacramento's policy in the city of Sacramento took 4 years in the making, and it is our greatest hope that it won't take that long in Elk Grove. So the Soul Project provided provided education to the city of Sacramento, and with our colleagues at Sacramento County in April of 2019, they were able to pass their policy. And Danica Peterson is going to talk more about the options related to tobacco and retail density.
Perfect. Hello, good evening, council members. As Twyla mentioned, my name is Danica Peterson. I'm a health educator with the Sacramento County Tobacco Education Program. We are one of the programs of the Sacramento County Local Health Department. And I just want to start off by saying that the primary purpose of me speaking to you today is just to inform and educate on a variety of different policy options and to complement the presentation by Twyla Laster that was just provided. So our program is funded under the California Tobacco Control Program at the state level. We are funded through a combination of Proposition 99 and 56 tobacco tax funds. We work to increase tobacco education to the community and also to help protect the environment. Our main goal is to decrease not only tobacco access, but also use. Some activities that our program does, such as today, informing and educating policymakers on different tobacco-related policy options, providing community education, conducting evaluation activities, and we coordinate our local Sacramento County Tobacco Control Coalition. The mission of the coalition is to transform Sacramento County into a tobacco-free society in the 21st century. This is a very well-run coalition, and it's been in existence since 1989 with the passage of Proposition 99. As far as who's on our coalition, consists of community members and local and statewide partners, which includes the Soul Project, as well as the American Cancer Society, American Lung Association, Breathe California, UC Davis, local school districts, and more. So as Twyla mentioned, there's a variety of different policy options to help address the youth access issue of tobacco. Flavored tobacco restrictions are one of those such options. And another option, which I'm going to talk about now for a couple minutes, is tobacco retail density restrictions. You may be familiar with a law organization called Change Lab Solutions. This is a national organization that provides best practice language for tobacco control. And Change Lab puts forth model ordinances that different cities and counties can adopt. They currently have a recommended comprehensive tobacco retail license ordinance. One component of that is restrictions on flavored tobacco, and another best practice is restrictions on retail density. So as I'm sure you are aware, the City of Elk Grove currently does have a local tobacco retail license. This ordinance is typically where any modifications, additions such as density would occur. And there currently are no tobacco retail density restrictions in the City of Elk Grove. There are a couple different ways that cities and communities have implemented retail density restrictions. One would be a distance requirement between tobacco retailers. As far as how a tobacco retailer is defined, best practice language includes any retailer that sells tobacco. So that would include a smoke shop, hookah lounge, even a gas station or convenience store. The City of Sacramento's ordinance, which passed in April 2019 and is effective January 1st of this year, they implemented a 1,000-foot restriction between all tobacco retailers in their new ordinance. Another policy option is a distance required between a tobacco retailer and a youth-sensitive zone, which typically would be a K-12 school, park, church, anything like that, where youth typically congregate. And then a third option would be to cap the total number of tobacco retailers in either a city or even in certain neighborhoods. So this is an infographic set forth from Change Lab Solutions. And this is for all the visual learners out there. Just shows some different options. So as I mentioned, capping the total number of retailers in an area. So for example, the entire City of Elk Grove. Or capping the number of retailers relative to the population size, or in a particular neighborhood. And the last one here shows prohibiting sales of tobacco products at certain locations and certain type of products. This could be tobacco-free pharmacies, this could be restrictions on flavored tobacco, and more. And the reason why we care about tobacco retail density, there's a health equity issue with that. When there are numerous clusters of tobacco retailers in a certain area, that's a health and social justice issue, especially when the price of tobacco products tends to be cheaper in certain areas. And so due to the health of youth and African Americans and other priority populations is why we care about reducing tobacco retail density. This is a map. You did previously receive a packet. Not sure if you had a chance to look. You're all very busy. But this is a map that our epidemiology department did just this year. And it shows where we currently are at in the landscape of tobacco retailers. If you can see, the red dot is retailers that are within 500 feet of a school and park. So as you can see, not too many, only 6. And then there's 15 retailers that are between 500 and 1,000 feet of a youth-sensitive zone. Most of the retailers are these white dots, 38 of them, which are not within 1,000 feet of a school or park. But there are some, as you can see, that are clustered together with each other. And this right here is, this is taken from the 2020 State of Tobacco Control Report. The American Lung Association issues this report every year, and what it does is it assesses every county in California and grades the county and each jurisdiction within the county. It grades them on their tobacco policies. It's a really nice visual to show where each city is at. So this right here is Sacramento County, and it's broken down in a few different topic areas: smoke-free outdoor air, smoke-free housing, reducing sales of tobacco products, and then emerging issues. So flavored tobacco and retail density are both under the emerging issues bonus points. So as you can see here, Elk Grove is currently at a C, doing decently, but there's definitely opportunities to improve said grade, but more importantly, the health of the community. And this is Twyla and myself's email and contact information. If you're interested in any meetings or additional information, we'd be happy to get that to you.
Any questions? Go Vice Mayor.
What is the sales off the internet? Or can any of this be bought on the internet?
It can. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what the percentage of sales from off the internet would be compared to a local jurisdiction?
We really do not have that data, but we can get you some information on that. I don't believe that Sacramento County has done a study in particular about, and definitely not particularly for Elk Grove.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Ms. Twyla, for coming out here today to present this to us. Can you talk about within the Sacramento region? I think the city of Sacramento has put together to ban the sale of tobacco, right? Tobacco, vapes, or whatnot within their city. Are there any other cities that you're working with to do the same thing?
Yes, actually, the Soul Project worked with Placer County in order to implement the ban in Auburn. Mm-hmm. We also are working currently with Yolo County. In West Sacramento, Woodland, and Davis actually voted last night in order to move forward with their second reading of their ordinance. So there's several cities around and several counties around that are working in tandem with the Soul Project and other organizations in order to get this taken care of up and down the state and local municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I want to thank you because you also assisted us in banning smoking in outdoor patios here in our city, and it's been wonderful to be able to take my family out to dinner or to a Starbucks or a Pete's Coffee or any of our local coffee places and not have to have somebody sitting right next to us smoking. So thank you for helping us lead that charge. I want to ask council for support around this, and I'd like to invite Mr. Shane Diller because he assisted with this. When this first got brought to the council several weeks ago, we talked about vaping and how it affects our youth and how we have the largest school district here within our city. A couple of things that we can update on is combining vape along with tobacco as well too, because right now it's not currently seen as the same thing. Mr. Shane and I sat down and spoke a little bit about what we can do here within our city, and we found that there is, as the map showed earlier, 50 active tobacco licenses here within our city, and it looks like they're pretty well dispersed around our city here. It's not in just one certain specific area. But I do recognize that there are areas in which we can regulate the tobacco and the vaping usage, specifically around making sure that this doesn't get to our young people. Now, banning is one thing that I would advocate for, because I don't necessarily, I don't smoke. I've never smoked in my life. However, I do also recognize that there are people that smoke, and they smoke socially, just like how, there are folks that drink and they drink socially, and there's some that don't. And so banning it would then increase the underground market, increase the internet sales, and some of that is not regulated. And so rather than banning it here in our city, I'd like to maybe take a look at having our staff having our staff work on pulling together something that can, one, regulate the vape and e-cigarette devices as the same as tobacco, but also heighten the age verification at retailers. And that could be something as simple as putting a swipe identification system within these locations that sell these devices, but also then putting on putting on penalties for those that do sell to the underage young people, right? And taking a look at how we can restrict some of this within our city. While this is going to take several months to put together, I do ask for support for a moratorium until these can be put together, and have our staff work on presenting something to our council here to adopt. And Shane, I don't know if maybe you want to add anything.
Thank you. No, I think you covered it pretty well. In regards to the moratorium, one of the questions I would have and maybe something the city attorney can help us with, would be what we would do with renewals of licenses that are currently issued. There's a steady stream of renewals that come in throughout the year, and we certainly would have some come in during a possible moratorium period. There's less new licenses that come in than there are renewals of the existing ones.
Mayor, members of the council, let me just address the moratorium issue. Of course, we couldn't adopt a moratorium tonight. That would have to be brought back. We could bring that back at a future meeting on under state law. You could adopt a moratorium fairly quickly. It's only in effect for 45 days, but then you can extend that through various extensions to get you up to 2 years. I don't think this process is going to take 2 years, but we can, if the council wants to do that, we can institute a moratorium while we work through these issues, including the issue of the renewal of licenses. We'll have to take a look at that a little bit closer. I don't know off the top of my head how that would be treated. There might be some concerns as to what rights the existing retailers use and have, and whether or not we would be able to restrict those. But a moratorium would certainly be able to put a pause on any new retailers coming in from a land use perspective, if that's what the council wants to do.
And Mr. Attorney, the reason why I asked for this is because I know that the city of Sacramento has banned it. That means that we're the next closest city within the city of Sacramento that we might get an influx in applications and asking for it if we don't have something in place here in our city.
So, Mayor,
Councilman?
thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Moon, I'll support you in that, bringing something back for us to consider. A couple of things I just wanted to, and it's good to see you again, Twyla. Yeah, it was, as Councilmember Nguyen mentioned, good to work on that project and support you in that effort. Regarding the schools, have you guys reached out to the school district? And I'm just curious what kind of problem if there's a huge problem right now happening with our kids in the Elk Grove schools.
So we do work closely with the Elk Grove Unified School District. They are members of our Tobacco Control Coalition, so we meet with them regularly to talk about what's going on. They are having a major issue with vaping and youth being exposed to ads and products and such. And so we are currently collaborating, with them through our coalition.
Okay, no, that's good to know. And then the other thing, to the point of the moratorium, I wonder if it would also be worthwhile that maybe, Shane, we notify these businesses what we're considering, so they don't go out and purchase a bunch of supply thinking, they're going to be able to sell something right away, knowing it's a risk, essentially, that they do that, knowing what we're considering. Thank you.
I am curious whether the partnership includes the County Office of Education as well, with the TUPE grant that is funneled through them?
On our coalition?
Yeah.
Yes. We have SCOE on our coalition, as well as each to-be-funded district, one of which is Elk Grove is on our
Oh,
coalition.
excellent. Okay. Councilmember, I'll support that as well.
Great.
So for something to come back. All right, excellent. Thank you. Anything else? Vice Mayor.
So on one, I'll support that as well. John, could you give us a couple points maybe relative? She said that, I thought we had something already on the books within 500 feet of a school.
Well, it's 300 feet, as I recall, under the code with respect to facilities that essentially house children, schools, playgrounds, things like that. One of the things that Councilmember Nguyen alluded to earlier is that the council passed an ordinance with respect to outdoor dining, so that is now restricted. And then public places where smoking is prohibited by the owner, of course, would also be prohibited.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking, maybe it was another one of the ordinances that we did on I swear there was either a 500,000 feet on
500,000?
500 or
Oh, okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
actually, that, we could make it citywide.
That'd be an awfully big restriction.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the next item.
Takes on to item 4.2, which is presentation of a certificate of recognition to Police Officer Jared Houston for his courage, assistance, and life-saving efforts.
Officer Jared Houston, come on up. I want to say, Officer Houston, when I watched the news clip, I wasn't surprised. This is very consistent with all of our officers. So you're not that special. Just kidding. Well, actually, the council thinks that you're very special. In fact, tonight we have a certificate of recognition to highlight what you actually did. This certificate of recognition is presented to Officer Jared Houston for his courage and assistance displayed on February the 11th, 2020. Whereas on February the 11th, 2020, Officer Jared Houston responded to a single vehicle collision at 12:56 a.m., where a vehicle had struck a light pole at Waterman and Sheldon Road. And whereas when Officer Houston arrived, he found the vehicle's engine compartment on fire with the driver trapped inside. And whereas the driver, who was conscious, was able to unable to get out of the vehicle, using his collapsible baton, Officer Houston broke the passenger side window in order to free the driver. Officer Houston assisted the driver out of the vehicle and got him to safety. The driver was transported to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. And whereas, despite the danger, Officer Houston showed courage and bravery. Due to Officer Houston's immediate action and life-saving efforts, the driver's life was saved. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Elk Grove hereby commends Officer Jared Houston for his courage, perseverance, presence of mind, and valiant efforts displayed on February the 11th, 2020, providing life-saving rescue efforts, averting tragedy, and saving the life of another, signed on this 26th day of February 2020. Congratulations, and I'd like to invite the entire City Council to come for our...
I believe they have a video that they wanted to show on this.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, let's watch the video.
And let me pull that up. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. With a video, we might get to that 500,000 count, but let me see what I can pull up here.
While he's teeing that up, when I watched that video, I was so impressed with I mentioned it to the chief that was textbook, the way you responded and everything, in my opinion. Beautiful job.
Thanks, sir. Somebody in there? Hey, get out. Are you on the passenger side?
I cannot get out, sir.
Are you on the passenger side?
Yes, sir.
I got you. Hey, back up from the window. Lean back. Lean that way. Come on. Hey, give me your hand. Come on. Hey, get your seatbelt out. Come on. Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. I got you. Go that way. Go that way. Go that way.
Well done. Members, shall we?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great job.
Like to say something?
In the next?
Yeah, just talking.
Okay. It's awkward talking this way and looking at you guys back over here, but just want to say I appreciate everybody that's here. Appreciate the time you guys took out to show up tonight, and I appreciate everybody that's wearing the badge in the back that's been there to have my back this entire time. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the next item.
Take us to section 5, public comment. Members of the audience may comment on any item not on the agenda that is of interest to the public within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes or less if a large number of requests are received on a particular subject. City Council cannot take action on non-agendized items raised under public comment until the matter has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. Members of the public desiring a response to a specific question are encouraged to contact any member of the council or city manager at any time. Those audience members who wish to address a specific agendized item are encouraged to offer their public comments during consideration of that item.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right, just as a reminder, each member of the public who signed up to speak gets 3 minutes. When your 2 minutes have been reached, then the timer does change color. You have 3 minutes, and of course, when you see the timer turn red, please stop. I don't mean to be rude, but I will interrupt you because out of respect for other individuals who have signed up to speak. So our first speaker is David Anderson. Come on up, David Anderson. Following David Anderson is Mike Allen.
Good evening. I am here this evening to request an explanation about the Aquatic Center project that has resulted in litigation instigated by the city with Arntz Builders and Big B Construction. Specifically, I would like an explanation of what Mr. Warner was referring to in his email of September 25th, 2018. 2 weeks ago, I read to you the email Jeff Warner sent to Jennifer Alves, Bob Murdoch, and copied to Sean Stroman at Roebling Construction. Jeff Warner wrote, quote, "Bob, we're getting major pushback from both Arntz and Big B. I fear that if we're unable to offer any compensation for performing the work, they will refuse. This is just a heads up, and I still recommend moving forward with our approach, but I am less optimistic now," unquote. Please have somebody from the city explain to me what is meant by, quote, "our approach," unquote. It is a reasonable conclusion that the reply comment from Jennifer Alves to conceal the experts' reports from the city's retained experts was at least a highly unethical act. The same conclusion can be made about Mr. Warner's comment about what his, Mr. Murdoch's, approach is, but it is readily apparent that paying Arntz Builders and Big B was not part of the plan. I have not invoked any outside agencies to address the particular conduct that this email calls into question yet. It seems appropriate for the city to have the opportunity to correct any misconception I or others may have about the meaning or intent of Mr. Warner, Mr. Murdoch, or Ms. Alves' communication. If I don't receive a response from the city, I feel that any conclusion I may draw cannot be challenged if the city does not explain or refute the meaning or intent of the email. And for the benefit of the legal staff that continues to allege that this email is somehow a privileged communication, let me be clear. It was produced as a public records request. It also included Roebling Construction in the original email and in the reply. Roebling Construction is a third-party contractor, not unlike Big B, and certainly is not a client receiving legal advice from the city's attorneys. As such, the city waived any attorney-client privilege. Please respond to me within 10 days via email. I will send my email address tomorrow with another written request for an explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mike Allen. Following Mike Allen is Mark Graham.
Good evening. I know I haven't approached anybody until tonight about this problem, except for people that are concerning traffic in a particular area, which is where I live, Elk Way, from Elk Grove Florin Road to Lujan. I had requested speed bumps be put in. We went through several steps that I was informed about. I guess my major question is I worked very hard on this. I went from door to door getting the signatures necessary. They requested that I get 75% of 44 people, which was 33, which I did reach, sent all that in. And then, of course, there was the 6 people where the 3 speed bumps would be placed that were directly involved. They needed to sign. I found 2 of them. One lived out of state. The other was renting a house, and I found her. This is all part of the work that I did. At the end of all my efforts, sorry, hip hurts a little. At the end of all my efforts, the people that were involved in putting this all together also have, which I kind of think is redundant, another form that they mail out at the end of all this. They did not receive enough to make this go forward. I'm kind of angry. I don't see how all my work just went down the rabbit hole after all of this. I don't know who oversees all of this. I mean, I have a couple names of the people, Jose E. Galarado and Mr. Chapman. They were the 2 I talked to. In talking to them, I said, how could I go beyond this with your decision? And they said, well, it was the city council that mandates how this finishes up, which had to do with the final form that got mailed out. In talking to a number of people up and down that block, a large number of them did not receive any of these mailouts. It went out twice. My question is, I don't understand the redundancy of it. After all the work I put forth and all the people that signed these forms, I have all these papers with me if anybody wants to see them, which I'm sure they're on file also. That's pretty much what I have to say. I would like to know if something else can be done to make this go forward. Also, they did send to me another packet that said that they could put in speed indicators painted in, lines going down, a double yellow line going down the street, which there is nothing at this moment. But I don't see how that's going to help because they don't even use the stop signs out there. So that's pretty much what
Councilman
I have to
Hill?
say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Allen, between Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Busey in the back of the room, I'm over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They'll kind of walk you through because there's too many variables for us to know exactly what happened with your case. It could have been the CSD told us no. It could be something with our standards. It could have been one of the property owners where the speed bumps would have been placed,
Those were
raised
all
objection.
signed.
So if you have your paperwork and between the 2 of them, they'll be able to walk through with it. Okay.
Now?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, excellent, thank you. Mr. Mark Graham, come on up.
And Mr. Graham submitted a video. It's actually in 2 bits, but it's 2 video files. He submitted those in 24 hours in advance of the meeting, and they were circulated from a news station story that he was just to project for his public comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Graham, Elk Grove. I would like to meet with each of you to talk about the possibility of the city adopting a cell phone right-to-know ordinance, like the city of Berkeley did. And I have a few other ideas as well. We last met at the end of August. I appreciated each one of those meetings, and it's been 6 months. Okay, could we start the first video?
The average American now spends more than 4 hours a day using a smartphone. By the way, that's what the surveys say. The real number's got to be higher than that, because that includes making phone calls, surfing the internet, checking emails, probably 115 other things, taking pictures, texting them to your brother-in-law. The typical person is obsessed. A smartphone is indispensable. You literally can't do without it. Misplacing your phone, even for a minute, is like losing a child at Disney World. It's all you can think about till you're reunited. But how healthy is this? Not spiritually healthy, you know the answer to that, of course, but physically healthy. Is it good for you to be with your smartphone all the time? As it turns out, it's probably not. Several published studies have linked mobile phone radiation to cancer. The National Toxicology Program, a government organization, found that, quote, high exposure to radio frequency radiation used by cell phones was associated with clear evidence, we're quoting now, of tumors in rats. In 2012, Italy's Supreme Court upheld a ruling that said there was a link between a business executive's brain tumor and his heavy use of a mobile phone. Our trusty FCC, though, says there's nothing to worry about. According to our federal agencies, smartphones are entirely safe. Here's the problem with that claim. When the FCC screens for phone radiation, they allow companies to test their phones from up to 25 millimeters away from a person. That's really far. The manual for Samsung's Galaxy 10 Note Plus, for example, tells users that the phone, quote, should be positioned at least 0.6 inches away from your body. Okay.
Now the second video. It's the same video, but broken into two parts.
The manual for Samsung's Galaxy 10 Note Plus, for example, tells users that the phone, quote, should be positioned at least 0.6 inches away from your body. Okay. But when was the last time you actually held a phone at that distance? If you're not on speakerphone, you've never held a phone that far away. You have it right up against your ear. And when it's in your pocket, as it typically is, the phone is mostly about 2 millimeters away from your body. A lawsuit filed in December against Samsung and Apple cited its own test from an FCC-accredited lab that showed at 0 millimeters, the iPhone 8 hit users with 5 times as much radiation as federal exposure limits allow. Samsung's Galaxy X8 was 3 times as high. Now, both of these companies regularly run ads encouraging the use of their phones in unsafe ways. An Apple ad shows a woman falling asleep with an iPhone touching her body. A Samsung commercial shows a pregnant woman holding a cell phone to her belly to take a sonogram. 20 years from now, we're going to look at that ad and laugh bitterly, like one of those Camel ads with smoking doctors. Can you imagine they did that? In other words, we should be worried about this.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
But few people seem to.
All right. There are no additional members of the public signed up to speak, so let's move to the next item.
Take us on to Section 6, General Administration Information.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. A few items to report on. First of all, big congratulations to the Elk Grove Police Department Explorers. There are some major award winners in a recent competition down with the CHP Stockton Explorer competition. They won first place in crime scene investigation, first place in DUI investigations, and third place in mental health crisis investigations. Great job to all of our explorers. Also, I know the council learned earlier tonight, one of the longtime employees with Interwest has been working on major capital improvement projects over the last 16 years. Julie Klein is retiring at the end of this week, and we wanted to just wish her well and express our appreciation for the good job she's done over the many years of service for Elk Grove. Also wanted to, a press release went out recently, but next on Monday, March 2nd, Police Department's new Assistant Chief of Police, Bobby Davis, will be sworn in during a ceremony in the main hall at District 56 Community Center beginning at 10 a.m. The ceremony is open to the public. Please join us in welcoming Assistant Chief Davis to the Elk Grove community. Upcoming roadway closure, Bruceville Road will be closed for the next 3 weeks from Bilby Road to Allen Dettrick Avenue to install underground utilities for new homes in the area. Motorists will be detoured through the new housing development, and a truck route has been established along White Lock and Promenade Parkway. Detour signage and a traffic advisor will be going out this week to alert residents to the closure. Public Works Department has submitted a $5 million federal grant for Phase 2 of the Grant Line Road widening project. Waterman Road to Bradshaw Road funding is being is requested through the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America Infra Grant Program, and selection results are expected later this summer. Tickets are now on sale for this year's music concert put on by Elk Grove's Art Commission called Peace and Love, a musical review of the 1960s. Tickets are on sale now through the city's website. Previous years, this concert has sold out, so be sure to get your tickets quickly. Adults are $10, kids and 17 and under are free, and that is being held on March 20th at Sungrove Church. Little update on the Green Waive on Oak Grove Boulevard and Laguna Boulevard. It's been about 3 weeks since implementation of the traffic signal synchronization plans on these two roads. Overall, the results have been mixed. While the signal coordination has provided a reduction of 1 to 3 minutes of travel time in the east-west direction, we have seen the length of queues on side streets and left turn pockets increase at some locations, to the point where drivers have had to wait more than one signal cycle to get through an intersection. We've also experienced malfunctioning traffic signal controllers that have caused the signals to run out of sync at times. To address these issues, staff have worked with its traffic engineering consultants to develop updated signal timing plans for both corridors, and have been working with the signal control manufacturing to repair the malfunctioning controllers at no additional cost to the city. All traffic signal controllers have now been repaired or replaced as of last night, and the new timing plans for Laguna Bond were turned on this evening, while implementation on Elk Grove Boulevard will be next week. It is anticipated that the new timing plans and controller repairs will maintain the improvements for the east-west traffic while reducing impacts to side streets and left turn pockets. Staff will continue to monitor and make adjustments as needed, and we encourage members of the public to report any problems that they may be experiencing over the coming weeks. Just a couple other reminders. Mayor's Volunteer Award is open right now. That closes on March 6th, so please submit your nominations. And then finally, our event sponsorship grant also closes at the end of this week. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Are there any questions? No questions. Excellent. All right, let's jump right into member report. Let's go with Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, sir. I held a info session. As we know, Dignity Health is opening up their hospital here in our city, so we held an info session with the president, Phyllis Baltz. We had a small group, but they asked lots of questions. Same token, I will be holding a info session with CNU on March 2nd at Roundtable Pizza on Bruceville Road at 6 p.m. I had the opportunity to meet with the students of the Styrofoam Committee. As you know, they came to our last council meeting and asked for Councilmember Soon and I to be at their next meeting so they can share with us what they had going on or how they felt. And they felt like things were taking a little bit long, and I won't go through the entire meeting, so we'll share this portion of it. But they had a couple asks, and I felt like at the end they were very reasonable. One, they talked about having grants, the city providing grants for a transitional period for the businesses to switch over from styrofoam to whatever the option would be that they would use, but also giving a pretty reasonable transition period of at least 1 year. And then they had an idea of doing a green seal of approval, where if any businesses decided to use products other than styrofoam, that they would get a green seal of approval. We're going to flesh that out a little bit on how that looks like, but I told them that those options I felt were very reasonable, and that what Councilmember Soon and I would do would take these asks and bring it to the other committee, the Small Business Restaurant Committee, and see where we can come to a compromise. What I also felt great about was that they understood how this would affect small businesses. We talked about how a lot of small businesses here within our city are ran by the mom, dad, the kids, and then if there are young kids, they get picked up from school, brought back to the restaurants while they do their homework until mom and dad are done, and then they go home. So I offered to host a dinner with the students and their teachers at one of the restaurants that I know, in fact, is set up that way, that they do use styrofoam, but that it's ran by mom, dad, and the two children, and the children's children come in after school and do homework there. And to just understand how this is going to affect small business. And so they were very, very open to that. We also have some other options, which I will leave there so that Councilmember Soon can talk about after, that we'd be asking council for support on. And that's all that I have, sir.
Okay, let's jump right into Councilmember Sun. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Nguyen. That's okay. Well, a couple of things we talked about was definitely prohibiting it within just city buildings, city facilities, so our animal shelter, our corp yard, city hall, obviously, and those types of things, as well as incentivizing. So there could be a green, I forget what they call it, green deal or green
seal of
green
approval.
seal. Thank you. Yeah, and so we could have staff work with them and talk about criteria in which businesses could obtain a green seal, and we would work with the chamber possibly that would give some advertising to those businesses willing to switch over. And then finally, this one's a little bit more in depth, but it's a grant incentivization grant program that would help them transition, like maybe cost of printing, reprinting their menus because they might have to change prices, those kinds of things. We could talk about other things, but essentially those are the things that we, Councilmember Nguyen and I, we'd like to, with council support, to direct staff to bring something back that considers all those.
I think the immediate thing is to effectively immediately ban all styrofoams in the city buildings, right? We said that we'd bring that forward and see if we can have that happen where any city buildings, the police department, animal shelter, any city-ran buildings that we would no longer use, so we would commit to no longer using styrofoam.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yep. Same here. All right. Rest of your report?
Okay.
Are you good?
Okay. So I wanted to thank all the council. Was able to show up for the Tuskegee Airmen. We're very fortunate. My coworker is the daughter of Major Spanky Roberts, who's one of the first Tuskegee Airmen in World War II, the African American pilots who fought in World War II, and listening to their trials and tribulations and what they had to go through to actually serve and fight for our country. It was a great story told by her and her sisters, as well as other children of former Tuskegee Airmen. And it's well attended. The American Legion 522 put it on at our District 56. So again, thanks for all the council able to show up and support that. I had a SACOG board meeting last week since we met. So there was a presentation on Rails to Trails program that's going on nationwide about connecting trails from a regional level. It's a huge scale. I thought that was pretty neat because there's a huge potential for us in the Sacramento region to connect all the way up Grant Line Road, down the American Parkway, down Pocket River, Sacramento River on Pocket. I think it's something to aspire to. So that was good to hear. And then we also had a meeting. Part of this was the mega region. And for those of you who don't know, there's been conversations about trying to link our COG, our Council of Governments, to others in the Bay Area. I know Councilmember Hume, through his work on San Joaquin Rail Authority, is involved in this as well. But recognizing a lot of the jobs are in the Bay Area, and a lot of the affordable housing is in our area, and so we need to find a way to connect our regions together. So the San Joaquin COG, which is its own, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC, another COG, and Sacramento Area Council of Governments, another COG. We had our first meeting there talking about regional efforts, and we're holding a summit in the near future on the policies are still being worked out, but definitely transportation and housing are two big ones. And then as part of SACOG, we didn't have a quorum, so we weren't able to adopt it, but the Regional Housing Needs Assessment that talks about what local jurisdictions must zone for affordable housing. That's a report that, again, we couldn't take the action to adopt it, but the numbers came back, and I think you guys have seen it before. about 8,200 additional low affordable housing units will be required for our city of Elk Grove to be zoned for. 4,000 of those are for very low and low income, and it's a segue into something I wanted to bring up, and that is through my day job, I was at Sacramento City Council adopted an ordinance dealing with homeless encampments on the levees. They unanimously adopted that, restricting homeless encampments on the levees. Most recently on Nextdoor, I don't know how many of you saw it, but there was a 16-year-old child that riding his bike over the railroad tracks on Laguna Boulevard, and what we think could have been someone who was homeless living under the overpass punched him in the face. And so although you know that they didn't want to, the parents didn't want to press charges, but it's not something new to our community, but it's definitely something that I've also been noticing that is on the increase. And I wanted to take the opportunity to maybe ask Jason to talk about what we're doing, because I know we're doing a lot as a city, but I also wanted council support to bring back a report on everything we can be doing, and I want to see what we can do to bolster that. Meaning, what the governor's issued an executive order that is directed state agencies, Caltrans to look at model leases on their property, DGS to look at what properties they have available to make for local governments to utilize for sheltering, and it's a all hands on deck issue. And I want us to do everything that we can do, but also let our public know that we are working on this, and this is something that's important to us. I want to leverage the nonprofits that we're doing already, Heart, Uplift, and others, and just start to highlight and improve upon an action plan to address this issue. And finally, make a periodic report back, monthly or some quarterly perhaps, but something that this is a fluid situation, and I think it deserves our attention, our constant attention. So Jason, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about a few of the things we've been doing. And as you know, this is a top priority for the city. We've gotten good direction from the city council in the past to make sure that we're addressing the homelessness issue within our community. Within the last couple of months, we put up a webpage on the city's website that lists all the different things that we're doing to address homelessness in the community. So if members of the community haven't seen that yet, I would encourage them to go on there. There's a bunch of different resources listed, talks about some of the nonprofit agencies that are doing service, and also lists a lot of the efforts that the city is actively engaged in. I'll just go through quickly some of the main things, but we do have several full-time employees that are dealing exclusively with issues related to homelessness. We have a homeless services navigator who helps connect homeless with services throughout the region. We have a full-time police officer that responds to issues that are reported in either through a 911 call, but most frequently just through our non-emergency line. If there's a report of an encampment or some homeless individual in a park or other public area, we can again provide that individual with different resources and services and hopefully address the issue that's there and get them to move on if there's different illegal activity taking place. We also have our mobile crisis support team, which consists of an officer and a licensed mental health clinician who can respond to calls with people with a mental health crisis. As we know, a lot of homelessness involves either addiction or mental health issues, and so we have resources to be able to bring to bear regarding that. We also have done a lot relating to transitional housing and being able to find places for these individuals to stay, get them connected either with temporary sheltering through organizations like Heart or others, but also into more transitional housing and hopefully into longer term housing solutions. One of the most recent things, I don't know if you recall, last year the city council adopted a resolution essentially declaring a housing crisis or emergency in the city of Elk Grove. What that did was allowed us access to some of the HEAP funding that was out there. And so about 2 months ago, we were contacted by Sacramento County, and essentially they made 10 referrals available to Elk Grove. So 10 homeless individuals in Elk Grove now or are in the process of getting referred to more transitional or permanent housing solutions. So think of some of the kind of resource resistant or service resistant homeless individuals in our community are now going to be hooked up with housing resources within the county, not necessarily within Elk Grove, but just within the county. And the county is a little bit behind on actually finding homes for those individuals, so we expect to really see some improvement and some placement of those individuals in the next 30 to 60 days. But again, we do have 10 spots available that have been referred to from Sacramento County. We also have a rapid rehousing assistance program through a state grant that we received. One of the things that we've been kind of angling towards, really good timing, segue from what Councilmember Soon mentioned, is in May, we plan to bring back an item to the City Council talking a little bit more in depth about some of these efforts that are going on, but more specifically about some of the housing issues. If you recall, we had a $5 million grant last year relating to navigation hubs and things of that sort. We've put some of those resources to use. We have some additional thoughts and ideas and recommendations on how we can spend some of those funds going forward. So we want to get some direction from council on that. We also intend on providing some updates on the recent movement when it comes to some of the governor's items with homelessness and how state properties might be used. There was just a list that came out today making various Caltrans and other state properties available. There were no Elk Grove sites on the list, but there was maybe half dozen or so throughout the region. So we're going to keep, like Councilmember Soon said, it's a pretty fluid situation. We're going to keep monitoring and updating the community and what's going on. Our webpage now will be a resource that we can post different kinds of updates and information for the community so they can follow what we're doing, what efforts we're undertaking, and how we're addressing this within our community. We also have our newsletter and social media avenues to get information out. So right now the plan is to come back at the first meeting in May and have a more robust discussion with the City Council. We can agendize it and talk about some of these items as well as the remaining $5 million that we received from the state before.
Thank you very much, Jason. And, it's very delicate. Obviously, I know it's important to all of you. A lot of these folks are members of our community, too. So how do we find a way to do it in a compassionate manner? And I know, Councilmember Nguyen, you've got a lot of experience on this, and you're on the task force we established. But just, the young man experience in that, that's just not something I couldn't let go without bringing it up to our attention. And then just two last things. We had STA meeting today, Councilmember Hume and I, and the conversation about the expenditure plan for a potential future transportation sales tax measure is ongoing. Seems to be coalescing around an expenditure plan agreement, but we'll see. And then finally, tomorrow, I'm co-hosting with CNU. I think Councilmember Hume, Vice Mayor Ettrick, Councilmember Hume had yours on the hospital application. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Hume.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the last council meeting, as was mentioned, we had a Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting on the 13th as well as today. And I think if we can just get the chair of that board to go ahead and bring the item up for a vote and call the question, we might be able to. His name is Darren Soon, by the way, if you want to find that chair and send him an email, say, Chair Soon, please just call the question. I think we have an expenditure plan that, as was the unenviable goal of everyone involved, was to make everybody just mad enough that they would accept it and not so mad that anybody protests too loudly. So I think it's about as close as it's going to get, and we'll see what happens if it makes it to the ballot. So I testified before the California High-Speed Rail Authority last week in order to try and implore them to adopt their 2020 business plan as presented at their meeting in April. That would basically keep the first operating segment, Madera, Fresno, Bakersfield. It keeps the money on this side of the grapevine, which is a challenge at this point. So both RT and the San Joaquins thought that was important because obviously that Merced connection now connects them up to the San Joaquins, which gets them to the Sacramento region. So attended the initial planning meeting for the school district is looking at forming an education foundation, which would help them bridge some of the gaps with respect to equity and family resource centers within the district. So that was interesting. That's an ongoing, probably going to be a year-long effort. And then this morning had a sanitation board district meeting, and nothing to report on with respect to Elk Grove specifically, except that following that meeting, then we had a subcommittee meeting of the group that is exploring whether or not to merge the two districts, the sanitation board and the Sacramento area sewer district, which then the county is also looking at whether or not they would like to assume the duties of the sewer district for the unincorporated area, which presents a problem because then you would have several different jurisdictions owning the infrastructure in the ground. As you know, when a pipe backs up, whoever is responsible where that pipe backs up might not have created the problem. So anyway, it's ongoing, but I'm hoping that we can come to some sort of resolution and get that. We have some time. The master interagency agreement doesn't expire till 2024. So it's good to be taking a look at this early on. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Ettrick.
Thank you. Yeah, first, kind of just a segue from the homeless situation. By coincidence, I'm meeting with the folks from Hart tomorrow to try to look at some of the regional options as well that I know we've had several discussions here on. So I'll report back if there's anything worthwhile that we can add on to what we're doing. Second is, one thing that wasn't mentioned was the police department's annual award ceremony for officers that have gone above and beyond the call of duty. That was today, and this is, I think, my 12th one that I've been to, so it's pretty impressive, as we saw tonight with one of our officers that went above and beyond and put, as day in and day out, they put their lives on the line, and they'll probably see the best and worst of people in our society. So definitely a tough job, and great that they're being able to recognize. And then the last item I have, I've received several communications from various applicants that have applied for our boards and commissions, and they'd like to see something in writing or something, that there's a procedure that they need to follow to make sure that they have everything that the council's asking for, because some of them filled out the application and they thought that's all they had to do, and then they find out that if they showed up, it meant a higher value, and then if they got up and spoke, they got a higher value, and if they met with the council members, they got a higher value. So there's some confusion to them and some disappointment at the same time, and I think if there's going to be an expectation of the applicants, we should at least give them all a fair playing field. So if this is something, I don't know if we need to bring back to codify something in the future. John, I don't know what your thoughts relative to, I know what the law is versus.
Well, the law is the council has discretion on appointments through the mayor, subject to the approval of the city council. So if you'd like to have a discrete process in place, we can bring that back for the council's consideration and adoption if that's what you want to do. You've identified some points you'd like to have in that, but if you want it to be a formal council policy that you consider when the council does appointments, we'd bring it back.
Yeah, because, and Jason, maybe you can pipe in, because I think you've actually gotten some backlash at times from some of the applicants, over the years on different things.
Sure. I think the part of it is we recently had discussions about planning commission and appointments to the planning commission. So part of that is I did have an opportunity to look around at other city sites and what they do put up. There are some cities that are don't have a lot of information that are out there. There's some that have extensive web pages and information about what's taken into consideration for appointments. I think just in the contact that I have with applicants, there are some that just send a application in the mail, but there are others that will open up a dialogue with me, and I will just let them know of what's happened in the past in terms of there are applicants that come to the meetings and there are public meetings. There are a few times where I try to keep everyone apprised of when the appointment considerations are coming up, and there has been some backlash just in terms of what they were informed or what they were told about what the process was.
So I think if we had an expectation that we gave all the applicants that there'd be no harm, no foul type situation, because I really have had some people that were very good applicants that felt the system is fouled.
I think as Mr. Hobbs brought up, we could probably put together some elements and bring that back for policy. And likely where that would best go is if we had a policy in place that was approved by the council, we could put it up, because we do have a centralized page for all of our solicitation for vacancies. And so it would be a core resource in order to direct people to.
Okay. Is there consensus that we do that?
Sure, I'll support it.
Sure.
You know what, I just want to caution us, just because if we start putting on there that applicants need to meet with each council member, and like the next planning commission seat, if there are 15, 16 applicants, and I don't have time to meet with the 16 members or to schedule a conference call. And I think really, I think you're referring to, because the mayor asked the question, like, did you contact each one of the council members? Did you meet with them? I think the mayor had those questions. And so those were kind of his things that he looked for. And every mayor is going to have different things that they look for. So when we put this in place, it almost puts it in place for everybody to follow. And I just, you know, I caution us, just because I feel like it may even stop folks from applying because they can't come that day or whatnot. And that shouldn't be the reason why they can't apply. I think we've even voted on a youth that didn't come and speak. Not the last one, the one prior to that, we did appoint a youth that wasn't even here to speak, because that youth represented the district and the school that we were looking for, and that individual wasn't even present in the meeting. So, you know, I support it. I just want to be careful if we do that, because what we put in there, and suddenly we get all the, even with the youth commission, if we put this for, think about it, we've got the youth commission, we've got the diversity and inclusion. So if we put this for the planning commission, it's going to be for all of them. And those come up quite often. And so when those come up and what we put on there, we need to follow through that. If we say you get extra points for meeting with your council members and your mayor, we have to make sure that we're available as well for them. And I just can't, I'll be honest, I can't do that.
Maybe they all have to meet with the mayor.
I like that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'll reserve my
support
comments when it does come back in respect to the Brown Act. All right. Let me see. Is there anything else, Vice Mayor?
No.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to add is the Elk Grove Police Department's award luncheon today. Chief, I was thoroughly impressed, you know, and I was kidding with Officer Houston, but the truth of it is that day in and day out, we see officers in Elk Grove that perform above and beyond. And I think that is credited to the management and your leadership. And, you know, certainly you've been in the department long enough where you've created that culture. I'm just very happy. I'm just very happy that when you acknowledge these individuals, you know, I look to them and they're very gracious, and they do it without the expectation of a thank you. And I think that was evident tonight with Officer Houston, who really didn't want to say anything because that's part of what he does. And, you know, I mean, we send this back to the troops that, you know, I think, you know, from the mayor's standpoint, I'm very proud of our men and women that keeps us safe on a daily basis. So thank you. Attended sanitation this morning, and as Councilmember Hume said, there's nothing groundbreaking to report. I have our quality tomorrow, and I'll waive the rest from my report. And let's move to the next item.
Take us to Section 8, our consent calendar items.
Okay, we have one member of the public signed up to speak, so I want to open public comment.
Oh, that might be just left over,
Oh, is that
Mr.
okay.
Mayor. So
all
I
right,
have it
I
clear,
want to open
actually.
and close, and seeing that no members of the public to sign up to speak, council deliberation and direction.
Motion.
Second, I just want to congratulate Public Works on closing out some more projects. Good work.
Excellent. Got a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Takes us to Section 9, our public hearings, and that one hearing is item 9.1, to conduct a public hearing to consider a resolution declaring results of a majority protest proceedings and renewing the Elk Grove Tourism Marketing District.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm Darrell Doan. I'm the city's Economic Development Director. The item before you tonight is the final step of 3 steps to renew the Elk Grove Tourism Marketing District. That step is a public hearing. I went through this presentation at the last step, which was a February 12th public meeting. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly, and this will look very similar to what you saw last time. Tourism marketing districts are authorized by state law. Our district was formed in 2015. It had a 5-year initial term, and the current district expires in March. It establishes a 2% surcharge on room night stays at local hotels, and it generates approximately $400,000 a year. The tourism district is administered by a private nonprofit corporation that the city formed known as Visit Elk Grove. These are the district boundaries. It includes a very small portion of unincorporated of Sacramento County at the north on that map. These are the properties within the district. We have 6 hotels currently in the district. We have a 7th that is under construction, expected to open approximately June, so then we will have 7 hotels. And there are 3 additional hotels in various stages of planning and design. These are the board members of Visit Elk Grove. Several of them were here at the February 12th public meeting. The city has a seat, and it is currently vacant. These are the K accomplishments that should be key accomplishments. But as you can, I can't help myself sometimes with my honesty and integrity.
I think it was on your slide last time, too.
Okay. Well, I caught it tonight, sir. Visit Elk Grove has accomplished a number of things over the last 5 years, including the preparation of a strategic plan after focus groups with the community and community outreach. They created the Explore Elk Grove brand and logo, which they are using. They launched a branded website and social media platforms, and they've done a number of event type sponsorships, and then they've also facilitated hotel rooms for several events. And they've also opened an office and have hired employees. This is the district renewal process. It started on January 8th when you adopted a resolution of intent to renew the district. That was on the strength of petitions received by all the hotel owners asking you to renew the district. Staff provided a notice, a required notice to hotel owners that we intended to renew the district. No protests from those hotel owners were received and have not been received to date. The Sacramento County Board of Supervisors on January 28th approved the inclusion of the hotel in the county in our district, which they were required to do. And then on February 12th, you had a public meeting. Tonight, again, is the final public hearing. So we're asking that you conduct the hearing. If written protests are received from 50% of the hotel owners, then there are no further proceedings required, and you cannot take any action for a year. But we have not received any protests. And then after the public hearing, the council may renew the district by resolution, which is in front of you. In the process of doing that, you may revise, change, reduce, or modify the assessment or the type of activities to be funded. But if you do that, you can only revise the assessment in a downward direction. And if approved, renewal would commence April 1st, 2020. And we will come back to you presumably on March 25th with a new contract between the city and Visit Elk Grove. And finally, under the renewed district, we estimate an annual budget of $675,000 a year. That is before any new hotels are brought into the district, which is likely to happen. The new district or the renewed district will have a 3% assessment, so it will increase from 2% to 3%. It will remain 1% in the county, and the term of the district will be for an additional 7 years, whereas previously it was 5 years. And I will end my presentation there and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? No questions.
Thank you very
Perfectly
much.
clear. Thank you, sir. At this point in time, we'll declare public hearing open for public comment. Seeing that no members of the public have signed up to speak, Going to close public comment and declare public hearing closed. Mr. Clerk, if you can read the ballot tabulation, please.
There is no majority protest of 6 possible votes. Weighted according to the proportional financial obligation for each lodging business, 4 affirmative votes were returned. Ballots approved the proposed assessment described in the lodging businesses identified in the ballots. Resolution declaring the results of these proceedings and renewing the Elk Grove Tourism Marketing Districts available for council consideration.
All right, I'll entertain a
Staff's
motion.
recommendation.
Got a motion, is there a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention? Next item.
That'll
job,
take us
Darrell.
on to section 10, our regular agenda action items and recommendations, and that one item being item 10.1, to consider an ordinance making administrative amendments to Elk Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 3.42, on definitions of general services and public project. Put them in accordance with UPCA, the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tiffany Agrusa, your administrative analyst in the Operations and Maintenance Division of Public Works. This evening's brief presentation proposes an administrative amendment to the Elk Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 3.42 for contracts and purchasing. So a short background as it pertains to the proposed amendment. On April 9th, 2008, the City Council adopted ordinance number 092008, establishing the current contract and purchasing procedures. Again, on April 8th, 2016, the City Council adopted ordinance number 022016, thereby implementing the provisions of the California Uniformed Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, Section 2200 of the Public Contracting Code, hereinafter referred to as UPCA, for public works projects. The proposed changes would amend Section G1 for general services and P2 for public projects. The current code references Public Contract Code Section 20161. Staff is recommending updating these sections to reference Public Contracting Code Section 22002, which update the definition of a public project. Under Public Contracting Code Section 22002, maintenance work is excluded as a public project, though maintenance work would still be subject to the competitive bidding process under the city's local code. Taking into consideration the city's adoption and implementation of UPCA in 2016, staff is recommending these remnant references be revised to align with the UPCA definition of public projects as contained in the Public Contracting Code, Section 22002. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions. Perfectly clear. Thank you. Right, at this point in time, I want to open for public comment. Seeing that no members of the public signed up to speak, I want to close public comment. Council deliberation and direction.
Motion to introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only, an ordinance amending the Elk Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 3.42, contracts and purchasing, related to the definitions of general services and public project.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? All right. That's it. Let's adjourn this meeting at 7:52 p.m. Thank you, everyone.